Hi everyone, my name is Raphael, founder and CEO of Zendoc Labs. Today I want to talk to you about what I call the perfect pitch deck. I have other videos talking to you about common mistakes that I see in pitch decks based on 150 plus pitch deck reviews, features that investors care about when they look at startups, and a couple of other fundraising strategy and venture capital related videos, as well as blog posts on my website. Without further ado, let's dive right into what I call the perfect pitch deck structure, and I'll probably have to reduce the size of my video stream here, so apologies for that. But essentially, the perfect pitch deck, in my view, has 15 slides and covers the following. It starts with the cover, then goes into your problem, then goes into your vision, then goes into your solution overview, followed by product details 1 and 2, so 2 slides on that, competition, business model, traction 1 and 2, so 2 slides on that too, milestones, market size, team, funding ask, and then a cover out. Let me tell you a little bit more about each of those slides and why I think that's the perfect flow. Before I do so though, now that I'm thinking about it, I guess it also is helpful to think about why this matters. This matters because, fundraising is important on average for startups, and the pitch deck is the one thing that you have control over in the fundraising process. You have no control over who will respond to your emails, what their individual investor preferences are, what the market conditions are as you're raising capital, what people think about the vertical that you're in, and you most likely won't have a ton of control over the progress you have made as a business, the traction that you achieved, et cetera, et cetera. You obviously have control over that on a mid to long-term horizon, but in the short term, as you're trying to raise capital, it's very hard to move the needle on those things quickly. So the pitch deck and your pitch overall and your fundraising strategy are the things that you have under control. And so that's where the pitch deck plugs in. Now, as you'll see in the common mistakes video, I have a ravaging video on all the mistakes that I find. And one of them, that's probably the most important one, is the structure of the deck, where I see mistakes all the time and just poorly structured stuff, which makes it hard to follow your thesis, understand your story, and get bought into it. For instance, if you start with your team and you really have nothing to go for you as a team because you haven't exited the business in the multi-million or 3 million digits, then why would you put that first? I want to understand your problem. Or why would you, talk about solution on one slide, then talk about the market that you're in, then go back to your product, then go to your competition, and go back to your product? All of that is going to destroy the storyline and the red line through your pitch. And this stuff matters in order for me to be, enthusiastic about your case and present that internally also to my partners, depending on the role I have. If I'm an analyst, I have to pitch it to my investment manager or principal. Same for associates. If I'm a principal, I may have to talk to other principals before I proceed with your case, right? So long story short, the pitch deck matters, and it gets done wrongly all the time. And so these are the 15 slides that I suggest you have in them. And on a macro level, what you do if you structure your deck the way I present here, you start by selling the problem and the future vision that you are striving for. You give an overview over the product that will achieve that vision to solve that problem. Then you talk about how you're uniquely differentiated in the market, how you will go to market, and what you have already achieved. So what you're essentially saying is, we have a meaningful problem that we're solving. We have the solution to get it done. We know how we're based in the market. And by the way, it's actually working. And then down here, milestones, market size are about, hey, and by the way, this is not it. We have a very clear roadmap for what's happening next, and we're in a market that's large, attractive, and growing, so expect more from us. And by the way, we are the team we're the right team for this opportunity. We have found a market fit. We have done it before. And then funding ask is about, here's the capital we need to achieve in order to realize our milestones, in order to realize value inflection points that are going to get us ready for the next funding round. So please give us the money that we're looking for. That's what's happening here on this slide on a high level. Now, what are some of the things you should cover? On the problem slide, you should cover obviously what your problem is. Ideally, you talk about some statistical evidence, numeric evidence that is actually a meaningful problem for someone, whoever that is. On the vision slide, you talk about, hey, here is the future, and here's what the world will look like once we're done. The solution overview introduces your platform on a macro level, and ideally talks, also mentions benefits, features, validation, such as quotes or logos or ROI calculations or study results, depending on the vertical that you're in, that will look a little different. And then product details 1 and 2 talk about one aspect of your business. For instance, details 1 could be about the consumer side of your marketplace, and details 2 could be about the the business side of your marketplace, or details one could be about one particularly important feature that your product has, and details too could be about another particularly important feature that you have. Whatever it is will depend a little bit on the business and how your storyline plays out and what your product actually is about, right? And then from there, you go into competition. This should be pretty straightforward. Pick 3 to 5 direct or indirect competitors, usually a mix of those. Pick features that make it clear enough how you're differentiated, so don't stay high level. Don't be biased in your competition review or in your competitive analysis. And then from there, you go into business model. On business model, you cover your pricing in terms of USD or whatever your pricing model is based on. Could be percentage, could be a different currency. You talk about who you're targeting, how you will reach them, the tactics, and then you give a case study on how big this can get, which is an important input and replaces your revenue projection. It's a believable case study on what your upside business case will look like if you achieve a certain number of customers or consumers or whatever the underlying economics of your business are. Traction 1 and 2 is arguably the most important stuff in your deck. If you have traction, very little really that looks attractive. Very little else really matters. You really only need traction to be compelling as a business. But many startups obviously don't have a clear perspective on traction, may have no traction at all. And so what you can replace these slides with is past milestone achievements. So if you have achieved past milestones in the past that are notable, not things like forming a team or incorporating the business. These are not notable. But for instance, if you published a white paper or you did a preclinical study or you got some kind of certification, ISO, CE, FDA certification or other stuff, you can plug that onto here, and that demonstrates that you have made executional progress against the milestones and goals that you have as a business. And then if you don't have enough content to cover 2 slides, you can either remove slide number 10 and then cut the deck to 14 slides. Shorter is always better than longer. Or you can add a third product details slide if you think you have enough stuff to say for about your product, or you think you need that additional slide. Sometimes it is necessary, sometimes, and most times actually it's not. All right, so from there you go into milestones. You talk about product milestones and growth milestones for the next 18 months. Meaningful stuff, and then you go into market size where you talk about TAM, SAM, SOM, as well as your growth rate and assumptions that have gone into your bottom up, ideally market sizing, not your top down. And from there you go into team. The goal for the team is to show that you're impressive and that you have founder market fit. Achieve that by using bullet points, logos, talking about exits, previous successful businesses, whether it's services or startups. You don't necessarily need to mention advisors on here unless they're really notable people that would be impressive, or add some kind of key competencies to your team that you don't have and clearly need. And then you can talk about in statistics, in a summary way, about the rest of your team. You only need to cover the co-founders, at least for me, only the co-founders and maybe key management team members on here. Slide 14 talks about funding ask, where you obviously ask for what you are looking to raise. You tell the reader about which instrument you're proposing to use, the use of proceeds, and key value inflection points that you're looking to achieve. What you don't need to mention on here is the name of your round, whether it's a seed, a B, a C, a D, whatever alphabetic, letter of the alphabet we want to use here, because ultimately it gives away negotiation power, and as a function of that, you definitely also don't want to be mentioning your proposed valuation on here, since it's really a function of what your discussion with your lead and the syndicate of investors that are interested in your opportunity. And then obviously, ultimately, you wrap it up with cover. One thing I probably didn't mention on cover slide number 1 is what looks really cool if you cover it on here is sort of some awards on for instance, you have been the product of the day on Product Hunt, or you were awarded some innovation grant, or you were some sort of product of the day on the app stores. Apple has that too, I think, or maybe it's the app of the week, I'm not sure. You can certainly mention that there too. It will look great and get you immediate attention, and be stuff you want to cover on here in addition to the slogan of the business, the name of the business. Great, that's it. Hope you find this useful. If you have questions about pitch decks, fundraising strategy, reach out to me and my team at Zendog Labs. So this is one vertical that we heavily focus on for startups from seed through to IPO. Essentially, I think our capabilities are ABC and seed. So if that's what seems relevant for you, get in touch. Bye-bye.